Welcome to Dynamics Corner. This is Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on March 21st, 2023. I'd like to take the time to welcome everybody to In the Dynamics Corner chair. With us today, we had the opportunity to speak with Steph Hilfer from Viim to learn all about our branding strategies. Kris, you ready over there?
Yeah, I started recording.
Oh, okay, good. So just a little casual. So you good? And I see, Steph, your
good.
Exercise bike is nice and warm. I'm sure in the Pacific Northwest it's cold.
Yeah, when you do a lot of bike riding out here, you got to keep warm.
Well, you're keeping the bicycle warm.
No, I literally put that around me when I exercise. It's a sweating thing, you know. You got to get the toxins out.
Oh, so it doesn't drip on the floor.
Yep, just soaks it all in.
That's good. I like that. Well, I guess we're here. We're just recording. It's the way that I like it to be. Steph,
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us again. I've been
Likewise.
looking forward to this episode. We were hoping to do it live, but my producer flopped and wasn't able to get it set
Fire
up
'em.
for us, but we might have to do a take two on it. How have you been?
The producer who flopped or me?
You.
I've been great.
No, that's
I
good.
have been great. It has been a whirlwind since we've talked. It has been a whirlwind of 2023. Learned some great lessons about how to not have a whirlwind of a start of a year, but it's been a great one. All positive things.
I learned a great
Oh,
lesson
that's good.
too. Because
What's your lesson?
I just ate a sleeve of Girl Scout cookies, and I typically don't eat
Jeez.
those. Well, I went to Lowe's the other day, or yes, I don't even know, maybe the other day over the weekend, and I will tell you, these young girls in this Girl Scout and Daisies troop are the future entrepreneurs of America, because they had me walk away with Girl Scout cookies, and I wasn't even planning on buying one. So they were out there in the freezing cold, and now today is just one of those mornings. It might have been a whirlwind of a morning, or a day, I should say, and I ate a sleeve of cookies.
You
So
know,
my lesson is,
one thing I don't understand. We see them everywhere right now, right? Like grocery
it's
stores.
that time of year
all
for the
that.
month of March.
It's that time of the year, but one thing I haven't seen them do is sit in front of like a cannabis store out here.
It's
Good call.
funny that you
Dude.
say that, because I was going to mention, I was listening to a tech podcast, and they had a woman on that works with the Girl Scouts, and she brought up a couple points. They're not allowed to sell in front of a cannabis store
Oh,
because of the messaging, and because one of the guys on the podcast said to the woman that, you know, why not set up in there? But she also mentioned that the hot cookies this year were the raspberry. And I think there was a mistake or something on the website, and they sold out in like in 8 minutes. They were supposed to come out like on the 8th, but they started selling them on the 7th, so nobody could get them. It was some crazy thing I was listening to on the Girl Scout cookies. But I give it all to those young girls and their parents that were standing outside selling those Girl Scout cookies in the cold. But they were doing a great job, because everybody was walking away, and they were good. They're like, this is our last day. We have to sell all these boxes. It was just great. Like the little girls were just...
And then you see them there next day.
They were just great. I have to get rid of all these boxes. I can't take them home. Can you buy a box? And she opened up a box. Here, have a sample.
nice. They
So it's
actually, the
just-
Girl Scouts, got to give a little credit to the Girl Scouts, because if you look at the back of the box or go to their website or any of their branding, they actually, that's a huge part of their tiered intention with the business, is to produce and to help instill entrepreneurship into their scouts. So we always just think Girl Scouts cookies, and sure, maybe they're doing scout things, but they truly are. That's exciting. They truly are producing and helping instill entrepreneurship and business mindset and marketing and all of that into our young women. And so I was never in Girl Scouts, but I learned that through looking at the back of the box. Apparently there's a murderer outside, guys.
I would say the producer would edit that out, but I don't think that would happen.
We barely heard it. I barely heard it.
No, it's
Okay,
okay.
well,
We could leave it in. It's we're practicing for our life. Well, thank you
turns
for
out I
sharing
have a
that.
dog,
I
so
did not read the box did not last long enough to have me read it to see, but I can see how they do that because the young girls did have a cash register. Like, it was great. They were set up like one of them was running the cash register, another one was checking off the cookies. A couple were out there, I don't want to say what do they call them? Not heckling, but they were like pulling people in, So it was
yeah.
everybody had like a separate job, and the parents were there drinking the hot
Hustle.
coffee.
I was
So
gonna say that's like a you make it sound like a whole like I don't even want to go where my head was going, but it's a whole organization.
Yeah.
but it was good, and to be honest with you, I just had the sleeve of the gluten free
Ooh,
because that's the samples they were giving out. So I'm like, oh, they taste good. There was like toffee, so it went with my coffee. And then that's the whole other thing. See,
Nice.
we're rambling. We're supposed to talk to you about marketing and branding. We'll get there in a moment. But I've
Marketing
been
of the
up
future.
since 2:30 this morning reading about. I went into a spiral on caffeine tolerance
Oh,
and how much caffeine you're supposed to have in a day, and how if you have caffeine every day, the same amount, you build up a tolerance, and then you need more, and then you can have a heart attack, and then all these other things. So I'm going to wean myself off of coffee.
I quit caffeine, not just coffee, all caffeine, like even in pill form, like Excedrin has caffeine in it,
I
right?
read that too.
I quit it for 250 days. Best I felt in my life. I also quit a couple other things like gluten, dairy, and sugar. Minor detail. But I will say, from somebody who was used to doing coffee every single day, once you get on some good whole food, natural goodness, that energy really does come. Um,
That's
cheers to that.
that's cheers to that. That's hard for someone living in the Pacific Northwest because there's like coffee shops like
So
10 feet away.
welcome to our coffee talk. So what made you stop after 250 days? And I know that myself. I eat healthy and near clean during the week,
Mhm.
and then the weekend I try to have a meal or two. And I noticed a big change in me
Yeah.
with the diet. But some things you just can't do without, I think, and you have to do it. But what made you go back if it's the
Well,
best you felt?
yeah, so I went like I was hardcore 150 days, no cheating, like no sugar, no gluten, no dairy, no caffeine. So that's not a very sustainable like lifestyle. And so because I was so 100, instead of like going to an 80/20 model, I did what all of us do. I was doing mine for a gut health purpose, not necessarily weight. Well, that was a bonus. But I was going for optimization of how I felt. But it was so, to be honest, the hardest part of it was the inconvenience of eating that way. And so I went back to the convenient lifestyle, and eventually it was just a little here and there, and then naturally it overtook the convenience. Now I actually don't drink coffee. This is tea. But once again, like
Tea has caffeine,
some
but
teas have
not as
caffeine,
much
not as much.
because what 8 ounce cup of coffee has. I'm pulling these statistics out of my head because I just learned them. But
Yeah.
98 milligrams, I believe, of caffeine are in an 8 ounce cup of coffee, and you're supposed
Okay.
to have 400 a day.
That's a
No
lot.
more than 400 a day.
No more than
And
400.
then I looked at my pre-workout, and there's 333 in a scoop. So I'm like, okay, so I
Ooh,
have a scoop of pre-workout.
that's
Then
a
I
lot,
have,
man.
then I like cook coffee. I cook coffee. So
Oh. Yeah. It's, to me, the thing is no matter what it is, whatever we're putting into our body, if it is fairly unnaturally adjusting our mood, our behavior, our ability to do something, to sleep, whatever it might be, no matter what, our bodies are naturally going to. I mean, I'm no scientist, but I just logically think eventually your body's going to get immune to it. And so, like, even the good stuff, they say melatonin is not habit forming and all that things, but if you're going to keep pumping yourself melatonin, eventually your body's going to need that. So I just went as whole food and as natural and as non-preservative and all of that as I could, working with a specialist. And it's definitely, it was such a great time in my life that I'm constantly aching to get back to some sort of balance point of of the convenience plus the optimization of how I felt.
I think you have to have a sustainable lifestyle. That's where I think a lot of people fail with something they set up is they go all in. I'm going to join the gym. Okay, well, I'm going to go twice a day for 2 hours. Like, it just has to be something sustainable. And I think with coffee, what you could do, what I read, I guess, everything you read on the internet is true. So I should have asked my friend Kris GPT to look it up. But you could have like 4 cups one day, then drop it to 1 cup, then go to 3 cups. Like if you
like
vary your intake, your body won't build up whatever the A's that begins with an A to block or whatever. Anyway,
that's the same as fasting too, though, because like you don't want to fast consecutively. You'd have to spread that out. Because I fast twice a week, either Tuesdays and Thursday, or Monday and Fridays. So
yeah, if
easy.
if you fasted consecutively, that's just starving.
Yeah, that's starving. Yeah, exactly.
but people do it.
People do it. Yeah,
they say
people
after you get to like day 2 or 3, you just don't realize it anymore. I tried to do it. I was talking with Kris about it. I tried to do it and
failed first day.
I made it until dinner time. And then I just said, you know what? I'll just eat between the hours of 8 and 6 or something like that. I don't care. I'm not.
I like food.
I do too.
I just like it.
And then come summertime when there's food trucks, they have like the food truck festivals and everything. That's
hard to pass up.
It's very hard to pass up. That's where that fasting stuff is not sustainable to me. If I go down, I'll go down with the big, greasy sandwich.
Big burger.
Yeah. No. So I try to do that. But anyway, we'll get back to it. We could just talk about this for the next couple hours. I don't care.
Make me hungry.
Say that again, please.
Someone will be interested.
Most likely, and if they're not, we're interested. So we're someone. So we've already met the definition and the quota for listeners because we're listening to ourselves.
We all have caffeine habits. I mean, this is a very common problem that we all have.
Oh, that's true.
It's true.
It is absolutely true. So if you have caffeine tolerance, you can vary your caffeine intake. You're supposed to have 400. I didn't see if it was based upon weight and age. That's one thing I did not see in my reading. I would assume that the number of milligrams, I believe it was milligrams, I hope it's not grams because that's a heck of a lot of caffeine in your body. I figured it'd vary by weight and age because of absorption, but I don't know because it happens all in your brain. So, maybe we're all the same mentally. I don't know. But
I would just say try it. Just try going even a month, a week with no caffeine. I mean, the problem is that you can't do just a week because the withdrawal period alone.
Caffeine withdrawals?
For me, I have to do at least a 7 to 10 day knowing, and that's actually getting all of it out. So I use Excedrin migraine to taper when I'm going off of it. So I'll do what you said, like the 3 to 2 to 1, and then I'll use that. And then I have to get from that 7 to 10 days.
But if you can stagger it to get off of it, well, you just decrease it, don't stagger it. And what I read, the caffeine migraines that people get, you don't get them as severe or get them if you bring your body to, get used to not having as much.
If you don't go cold turkey. Cold turkey is just, you're going to be miserable for 3 days.
Yeah.
I think cold turkey for many things is pretty bad because if your body's used to something and you take it away, it's an itch that needs to be scratched.
Not a fun journey.
No.
So back to it. So you had a whirlwind of a year. Sorry to take us down the road of caffeine, Girl Scout cookies, and tea. So what have you been doing that has been a whirlwind of a year?
Well, so my agency doesn't take new clients in November and December. Very intentional, lots of reasons for that. And so part of that is to let myself and my team have some dedicated time at the end of the year to not take meetings, to get through the tax season, to get through, New Year goals for ourselves. And so what happened this year in particular, because I actually stuck the most to it this year, everyone just took my booking link and looked for the next opening, which was January. And so just to our conversation of even caffeine withdrawal, I just flooded my January unintentionally. And so my lesson learned, just like caffeine, is I will open like 25% of my calendar in January and then 50 in the mid-January, and then slowly get to that 100% accessibility, because while it makes me, I mean, I'm trying to say this with as much humbleness as possible. When you don't let people book you for a period of time, they naturally just go to the next time.
Yeah.
And so I had just an insanely saturated business meeting heavy, a beautiful, great opportunity January. But it's just hard when you're coming off of the holidays, some kind of lax meeting time because of the way we're structured. So that was the whirlwind that I speak of.
Well, I'm happy that you were busy. That whole time management and scheduling thing is another, we could have another 10-year conversation on that thing. But
True.
With your busy schedule, I'm happy that we were able to get the opportunity to sit down and speak with you again, and your warm bicycle.
Warm bicycle, my hot tea, clearly
your water, your microphone's plugged in. So this episode, we wanted to talk about some hypothetical podcasts, what they would have to do, or what exercises you would suggest they go through in order to identify a brand marketing plan, or whatever technical terms you would like to call it. I'm not too
brand
technical.
strategy.
A brand strategy.
Brand strategy.
That's
Yeah.
the definition, Kris. I have to write all this
Which we
stuff
could
down.
bleed into marketing. I won't leave that completely out.
Okay.
Because I know that's what everyone, as soon as someone says, oh, I don't want to talk about branding, I want to talk about marketing, there's a reason for that. Our itchy bodies and our brains have been taught that we need to market. And I'm not saying no, but I'm just saying there's a step before it.
So the first step is to come up with a brand strategy.
Yes.
And how would we can start the timer, Kris, because we said we'd only get a 30-minute session on how to do this. So you take a lot of notes.
I'm taking notes right now. I got it open.
I'm going to do a quick 30-minute.
This no recording. This one. This can't be recorded. Okay. So I was just talking about this morning, and I talk about it a lot. I feel like I might have mentioned it on our last time together, but I'm going to bring it right back because we're talking specifically about this fictitious podcast that we are branding. Okay. Whether it is a podcast, whether it is a corporate business, whether you are a personal brand, whether you are a public figure and you have no monetary expectations with your brand, but you want to convey, maybe you want votes, or you want people to take action on a cause. Okay. All of those things need to be branded. We think branding is the visual elements within a brand. And I'm not saying they're not, that's just one piece of them. A logo, colors, fonts, imagery, video, all of the things we can obviously see. But in addition to what we see, there's intentionality that needs to be bled throughout your brand. Once again, think about if you're a shoe store, if you are a politician, if you are a nonprofit, if you are a basketball player. All of those entities still have to have an intention on why they exist and what they want from someone else, right? Whether it's monetary exchange, loyalty, fan base, right? And so now with this fictitious podcast, we've got to start by thinking about the foundation of who we are. And I want you guys to start visualizing.
Oh, I'm visualizing. I'm getting lost.
Good. Get lost in the sea of our visualizations.
Who am I?
Picture a foundation, like a home, like all of us listening right now, unless you're driving, even if you're driving, you're sitting on a foundation. It's called the chassis. My husband will be proud. Okay. Think about the foundation of a home. That is what I want you to start thinking about.
I sit
as
on
your
the chair.
brand. What'd you say?
Seat. I sit on the seat.
Seat on the seat. Well, but then the seat sits on the chassis, and then the chassis sits on the wheels, and then the wheels sit on the.
So then we're sitting on the ground.
And then yes, exactly. And then we get right back to Mother Earth, and then we're again.
Okay. Foundation.
Okay, so we're the foundation of a house. Okay, so what businesses do, podcasts, politicians, all of the things, we naturally jump to this idea that we need to start marketing. Oh, we need to get it out there. We need to get it out there. Okay. Yes, you need to get it out there. But what doesn't happen yet is people don't define what it is. So if marketing's
It's so
job,
basic, but it's so complicated. Like I think exactly what you're saying. Like they market, but then the question is, okay, well, what are we marketing?
exactly. And what, not what, so people will say, okay, well, we know what we do. Okay. We are a podcast. Okay. But what do you stand for? What do you talk about? What makes you different than any other podcast? What's the goal you want someone to take after they listen to your podcast? What do they get out of it? How do they talk about your podcast to anyone else? And so that it seems so simple, market it, market it, market it. But that is the foundation that you need to start with. And so brand strategy is defining the it. Okay. Just to keep with this foundation, what typically happens in businesses, and I'll say the majority of them, because even the big people that we look up to, the Nikes, the Coca-Colas, the Apples of the world, oftentimes those entities still started not with a solid foundation. They started throwing up walls. They started throwing on a roof. And you know what happened over time is things started to shift. Water started leaking through the roof. Doors started creaking. It got cold because the windows wouldn't shut anymore, right? All of these things slowly start to happen because if you just jump to the marketing it and it isn't solid, then slowly over time, you get a lack of consistency on what it is, a lack of who are we talking to, a lack of what do we look like. And so the foundation is establishing all those things. And in two ways. One, visually. And so visually, like I mentioned earlier, looks like your logo, your fonts, your colors, your imagery, the patterns that you use, the shapes that you use throughout your branding and marketing, anything that you put out there visually, you want to keep that cohesive. And then the second part is that intentionality. It's, okay, so we are a podcast and we're casual and we're fun and we're communicative and we're conversational. We are off the cuff, non-scripted. We're several of these things. So when we start to put together both our visuals and the messaging that we use to discuss who we are, those things need to bleed through consistently. So let's use the example of conversational.
Okay.
We didn't start this episode, and I know we're using a fictional podcast, but let's just say,
well, if we use a fictional podcast, it keeps the fees down.
Okay, yeah, good call. Good call.
See? So this is in theory. This is in theory. And we're not recording this, so we can't take notes, but I am taking notes.
Exactly. So in theory, if this, the host of this fictional, the hosts, Kris and Brad, let's just go with that, right? Those are random common names. Let's just say the hosts happen to be Kris and Brad of this conversational podcast. And they're thinking, how do we get people to get a sense that when you show up to our episode, you're going to get some random banter about blankets on treadmills or bikes and Girl Scout cookies and caffeine withdrawals, right?
Yes,
that's real. That is who we are. That's authentic to this show. And so that brings me to this conversation about what people can expect from your brand. And you can do that by starting to create messaging that alludes to that. So for myself, I do have a podcast.
You have a great podcast.
Brand,
yes.
Thank you. And even my podcast. So my podcast is Passion on Purpose, Leaders on Center Stage. And so my brand, Viim, my top core value for my brand is enthusiasm. And passion and purpose are very enthusiastic rich, right? And so you want to make sure that you figure out what's important to you and start to bleed that through intentionally through the efforts you're doing, whether it's a podcast or a business or what have you. So what happens? This is the thing that happens. When I work with people, and podcast hosts, great podcast hosts. When I help them figure this out, I'm not putting lipstick on a pig. I'm not saying, you know what, you guys should be conversational. You know what, you should be like funny and off the cuff. You know what, you should be kind of nerdy with tech and stuff. Okay. That's not the point. It's not to say let's create this entity. What you need to do is to actually go within and start being introspective and say, no, I'm just authentically energetic. When I show up places and I leave, what do people like get if nothing of my product? Gosh, she was full of vim. You know, she was full of vim and vigor. She was super energetic. That's where you got to start with your brand strategy, is be like, who are we at the core? And
so if we were conversational, nerdy with tech, off the cuff podcast hosts, we would show up and talk freely about random things, but have
and be
that nerdy tech type persona that's relatable.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, you would then start bleeding that through everything else, right? So the thing you don't want to have is that when somebody shows up to the podcast website, they get very straight, narrow, structured, serious. You know, I'm just going to pick random things that I know you guys aren't, dark and moody, right? You don't want that to be the experience.
That's just Brad's voice. That's it. Dark and moody.
Just cutting down the website.
Brad's like, no, we want them dark and moody.
Listen, it's Radio 101.3 B-Love.
Yes, yeah. Every time, hey,
midnight hour.
Every time I say, Brad, you gotta have a little bit higher pitch here, man. It's too deep.
I do. I've been practicing to have that energetic voice. With us, we have Steph, all the way from the Pacific Northwest. Steph's driving home to find her lost loves, and she wants to hear a nice old tune.
I'm getting jazz vibes. Like, I just feel like I'm about to hear a saxophone.
Oh, no.
But, you know, it doesn't mean, like, I'm hearing you say I need to work on that. To especially for a podcast, right? And you two as hosts, you don't actually need to work on changing anything about who you are. What you need to do is honor that and bring that out. Okay. So I have said that I'm a lot sometimes, and it used to be a negative thing. I used to be like, God, I know I'm a lot. And even this morning, I spoke at this event this morning, and I remember apologizing, even still to this day. You know, sometimes I'm apologizing for being a lot, and it's a human thing, right? We're going to all do it. But my favorite thing about when we start to use branding, these are my branding words. And I know I have like a whole team of graphic designers. I could just make this pretty, but I literally just write it off.
That's authentic though. See, that right there is enthusiasm, positive intention, visual excellence, peace.
I keep this in the forefront because I'm human, and I'm going to constantly forget and have imposter syndrome, and like that just happens, I think, as humans, as entrepreneurs, that we constantly are like, oh gosh, was I too much? Did I get in their face too much? But when I go back and I remind myself, you know what, no, this is who I put out there, this is who I am authentically. Before I went and committed to speak at this event, the person who hired me knows me. She wanted me the way that I've presented myself in the rest of the world. Now, if on my website and my social and everywhere else, I was very reserved and not enthusiastic and energetic and loud, then she, the person who booked me, might be a little caught off guard when all of a sudden this too much stuff shows up. But that's the beauty. If you create the expectation through your branding of who you are and what people can expect from you, you can attract people who want that, who want the nerdy, techie, casual conversation. Who knows what we're getting into? We started off talking about this. Now we're here. You're going to attract people who like to go down that journey with you. Whereas people who don't like that, who want to get to the nitty gritty, they want a bio at the beginning. They want to know what they're getting out of it. They want it in 12 minutes and then they want to get out. You're going to repel those people. And this is where I lose people. Because people are like, whoa, okay, I don't want to repel people. I want everyone to love me. I know you do.
There's 8 billion people in this world. I can't have all 8 billion of them like me. And I can't be
Exactly.
worried about all 8 billion. I can
Exactly.
only focus on what I want, right?
Well,
Or
and
focus on what I know, or focus on what I enjoy doing, that my inner nerdy tech conversational self. See, Chris, I'm going all out inner nerd. See, you
Dark,
told me
moody,
I'm going to be a dark and moody. I'm going to be a
like you
dark.
guys
jazz
have to,
voice.
at the least for a trial run, can you please do an audio with a saxophone? Like,
We'll
Yes,
add
we
it on.
can.
We'll add it on.
We can do that. Well, Chris, when we record the intro after. So, Chris, I won't raise the pitch of my voice, and we can do a saxophone intro.
yes.
Okay. So,
Okay.
whomever's listening to the podcast and made it this far, which of those are the people we want to attract, will already have heard the saxophone.
There you go.
Like they actually did it. They actually brought in the saxophone.
That's it. So we'll have to get some. I can download a sound clip or something of a saxophone, Chris, and we'll talk and we'll say, with us today, we have Steph Hilfer from Viim. She came to us all the way from the Pacific Northwest.
So far up north.
So
in that
far
little
up north.
corner. But even like, I know we're kind of joking with the saxophone, but there's even a lot of intentionality behind the music that you choose. Music can convey a time, it can convey generations, it can convey mood and experience.
You're in my head. Because I remember I listen to a song and I think of where I was in life.
Yeah, yeah.
See?
And you can use that to your advantage. So
Yes.
if part of your brand is to attract millennials, we'll just use that. Then, choosing Kenny G or maybe choosing someone from like the 40s, like a jazz artist, might not resonate, right? Kenny G might actually resonate more because I'm a millennial and I know who he is. I'm a little bit of
Pretty
an
close.
older millennial. I walk.
He's from here, by the way.
I know who Kenny G
He's
is.
from Washington State.
And yeah. So, but the point is that you can actually use it intentionally. So a beautiful example of this is Virgin Cruises. So Virgin Airlines, everyone knows Virgin Airlines. They branched out into cruises, and I could be wrong. Who knows? Maybe they started in cruises and then branched out in airlines. I'm not an expert on Virgin, but what I saw
We're not
was-
scientists, nor are we experts. We just talk like we are.
Yes. Yep. I do it a lot. It's fake it till you make it. Rihanna said that. Was it Rihanna?
I hear that all over the place, so I'm sure Rihanna must have said that.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It
we'll
was
give her
Rihanna.
credit.
If you don't know who said it, it was Rihanna. Poor Rihanna. So Virgin came out with a beautiful commercial targeting very specifically our age group. I'm going to just go with the room. Our age group, targeting adult only.
We're not even
Brad,
close in age group.
Shake that. You have no idea.
I do
How
have
old
an
are you,
idea.
Brad?
How old am I?
Yeah.
You can't ask a man how old he is.
Oh, okay. Now we're going to do that.
Let's say what I found out on one of our discussions with a former guest is that someone was 8 years old when Brad started with his career, and they were close to my age.
You are. That's okay. This still applies.
It's eating well, and I drink a lot of water. A lot of people
caffeine.
have asked me that.
Imagine how you would look 12 if you didn't drink caffeine.
I know, but it's when if I didn't drink any alcohol. I barely drink alcohol now, but if I didn't drink alcohol, I think that would be it. But I probably combated the effects of alcohol with the water. But I'm a firm believer that water. I hydrate. I do carry the gallon with me, not like someone at the gym who has to carry the gallon and show it around. But I take a gallon with me just to make sure I, do drink the water, because it's just like we talked about with anything else. Your body's not going to be 100% effective, in my opinion, unless you're fully hydrated. You need water to move things through your body, the vitamins, waste, everything
sure.
else. So
For sure.
anyway, I'm sorry to distract you. We're going to take a minute off of the clock.
Fair. So going back to the Virgin commercial though,
We're at
they
16
use-
minutes.
I love that there's an actual clock.
Yeah, I told you. You said 30 minutes.
I don't even remember this, but I'm glad you're honoring it, because this brain, it's valuable.
You had a whirlwind of a year.
You're
You
a
might have
lot,
forgotten.
Steph. You're a lot.
And I'm a lot. So Virgin's commercial comes out. They're targeting adults, okay? First and foremost, they are talking about kid-free cruise, meaning you leave those kids at home. Okay, leave the burdens at home. I'm gonna get up in arms with the parents calling them burdens. I have one, I'm allowed. And then so that's very clear. We're targeting a specific age group, who's going to be traveling, who's at the age and then the point of their career with the expendable income, right? Very targeted, very focused. And then it's Virgin. So there's this name. And then also they bust out Madonna's Like a Virgin commercial and bring song. And that's the overlay. And so then it puts this nostalgic moment right into where we were, into the feels of feeling like this time of our life.
Before we had the burdens.
And so that's what they were doing. It was like connecting with you on all of these numerous levels, being clear about who they are, what they believe, what they want you to do and experience there. And they did, and I brought this up because we're talking about music and how music is actually a part of your brand. It's not really part of your brand. It's a tool you can use that coincides and works with your brand in your marketing.
You can drive an emotion and feeling.
I believe, it conveys an emotion. That's right.
Yep.
And it's like what they say with songs. Like if you're in a good mood, you listen to the music. If you're pissed off, you listen to the words or something. Whatever, something like that. They like if you listen to some songs, and there's some songs, if you listen to I know it was an EDM or techno song that the beat was great. But then if you stopped and listened to the words, it was like, basically, I want to break up with you. I don't like you. You cheated on me. Like, it was just like, but they would like sing it to this beat. And it was like the most somber story. Yeah. But they were singing it with a fast beat. So it was just interesting. Okay, I'm sorry to try to take you off track again.
The beat and the mood and the actual music of it would tap into the mood and the behavior and the mood and emotional element. And then the words could tap into the logical part. And what's fascinating about bringing that up is that when we talk about consumer behavior and like purchasing behavior, the part of your brain that actually makes decisions isn't the same part of the brain that controls language. And so when you're reading something, it's got a bunch of facts and stats and FAQs and all the reasons why you can buy it. That's all fine and dandy, but that's a separate part of your brain than the part that says go buy it. That part that says go buy it, that's actually the part of the brain that controls emotion. That's why when we're talking about branding, it's not about saying, my water bottle is the best water bottle. It's about tapping into the emotions of why do you need a water bottle? What do you feel like when you have the best water bottle?
This is amazing. You're a psychologist too. No, it is.
Tell me how you feel.
No, I'll tell you how I feel because I just read a book. And that's what they were talking about. Kris, what was the book, the title of the book? I don't have a picture of it. Oh, I do. I can get the listing of it. It's not, I read it a couple books ago.
Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Do you remember the title or the author? Or?
Yeah.
Which book? I know we've been reading a lot of books.
Exactly what to say.
No, exactly.
I read a lot of
say,
books.
yeah.
I just wanted to get the exact title. I don't have
Philip
the author
Jones,
written down, but exactly what
Phil
to
Jones.
say.
Phil Jones.
And it was what it was talking about is, driving someone to purchase, basically exactly what to say. And some of the tone in it was the emotion of it, making someone who have the emotional, impulse buy type.
Yeah.
Right. Where people want to do it. He didn't promote doing an impulse buy, but I'm just saying, people purchase with emotion.
Well, and sometimes that emotion literally is just impulsive. And that's why there's a very specific targeted set of items that goes into impulse aisles. They don't put large ticket items in an impulse aisle because then it's no longer impulsive, right? The big, I'm super biased because the word is in my name, but intentionality is so important when it comes to both branding and marketing. Everything you do, you should stop and think, how does this color, this action, this word, this choice of what we're selling, this audience we're tapping into, how does that serve me and my greater mission?
So we started off with our brand strategy and we defined our it. Okay. So now we defined our it and we have been traveling along our journey. and we're trying to convey our it.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned music, consistent theme, and other points.
Mm-hmm.
How can we figure out what's the best, or what best fits us?
Yeah. So the way I work with the people who, really want to sit with me for that long, my
I only
clients,
want to sit with you for another 7 minutes.
yeah, people who don't put me on a timer. So we actually start all of our clients and anyone who will listen to me, I tell them to start with the golden circle exercise that Simon Sinek has actually coined and talks about. And it's, gosh, decades old. It's still a principle that bleeds and holds true now. Start with the exercise of actually sitting down and defining, what do you do? How do you do it? And why? Those three basic things, and actually sitting down. What happens? What people do? Oh, we know that. Oh, yeah, we have a mission.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have that. It's up in here. I know why we do what we do. That's not helpful. Actually sit down and flush all of that out with the power players of your brand, whether it's a podcast, a politician, a personal brand, a corporate brand. Sit down, get it all out. I don't care if it's all out on my pretty little workbook that I can get you, or if it's all out on a messy, composition book. Get it all out into one place. And now I want you to use that to be the lens that you look through on everything that you do. That's how you define your it. There's a lot of principles and ways and exercises, and you can talk to any brand specialist. They're going to do it a little different. The best $12.99 or however much it is on Amazon you could spend is just getting Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. Or gosh, save yourself that. Go watch the 18-minute TED Talk and just apply that golden circle to anything you're doing. And then once you do that, don't deviate. And if you deviate, you have to make sure that you recognize what's the intention of that deviation and how does it become part of who we are. I could just keep like,
no, this is great.
That's good though.
There's so many things going through my mind right now that I don't think 30 minutes would be enough, but it has enough for me to hypothetically sit down and say, what, how, and why are we doing a podcast?
Let me give you some tangible things too, because this is like, I lose people because this is the harder, deeper stuff that most people just don't do. They don't do it because it's hard. They don't do it because it's abstract. And so let me give you something that's a little bit less abstract, right? So the V in Vim stands for visual. It's what most of us think of our brand, is those visual things. So if you're listening to this, you likely have some sort of brand logo, something that you're using, putting out there. Don't feel like you need to change it. Just start here with this consistent exercise. Go through and look at everywhere that you are presenting your brand. Likely you have these: a website, some social media. I don't know if it's Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, any of them, whatever one it is, whatever few they are, wherever you're showing up there. Maybe you got like a business card. Anything that you are using to put yourself out there, I want you to write them all down. And then I want you to check the key things. Is my logo on all of them the same? Boom, boom, boom. Check them off. If they're not, make them the same. What fonts am I using when I can control them? So like some platforms, like social media, when you're writing your caption, you're limited to theirs. But on your photos, if you're putting text on your photos, if you're putting a quote out there, are you using consistent fonts? Go through all those, check. Start cohesifying them, get them consistent. Colors. No matter what, if it's the right color, wrong color, if it's working for you, if it's not, I don't care. Just start here by going, okay, I'm going to be blue. Okay, that's what I got, blue. Okay, check them all. Market, website, blue. Social, blue. It's got a little of this in here. Start to get into the habit of actually just being consistent and cohesive across the board. Then when you're ready, start tapping into that intentionality piece and start making sure that the blue is the right color, making sure that the logo actually conveys something that matters to you, that it's serving you well is rather the better thing, I should say. So I don't know. Hopefully that's a little bit more tangible and you can walk away from
It
this
is
episode
very
and being like,
tangible. I'm
I can
just
do that.
thinking of now, like, it's a great exercise. You're not losing me. You're making my mind race because I can relate to a number of things that you were saying, just even in conversations I've had with others. What are things? Oh, we just need to do this. Like they themselves get lost because it becomes abstract, or they say, "Oh, we're doing this," when in reality they're not, right? But they think they are, or they think they know what they need to do. But now you just list it out and do it, right?
Yep.
I think the challenge is a lot of organizations can't even get started. I mean, this is all good, but it's still a challenge for many to just start rolling with it. So
Because they just dive into the we need to market.
Yes, and then they get
exactly.
disappointed. It's almost what we talked about, earlier with our transition to having a sustainable life. You can't just jump into marketing and have all this marketing, and then you'll be
Yes.
disappointed at the results because going to the gym twice a day, isn't giving you whatever objective you're looking for by going to the gym twice a day in a day, right? So you just give up and you think that it doesn't work.
Well, because
It's a
you forget
marathon.
why you forget why you're doing that. And you maybe didn't actually if you actually thought, I want to go to the gym twice a day, for 2 hours a day, because that is a place where I'm happy and I'm fulfilled and it brings me joy and I dedicate that time, you are way more likely to actually go there twice a day for 2 hours. But if instead it's, I want to go there twice a day for 2 hours because I want to get fit, because I want to lose weight, and there's no depth to it, that ties right back to the branding. The depth to these choices is actually what makes them sustainable and gives you the longevity. And that's why when you look at the greats, the Coca-Colas, the Nike, the McDonald's, when you look at the greats that have stood the test of time, it's not just the visual element that they've kept consistent. It's why they do it, why we continue to go back to it. And so if you want to walk away from this episode and feel like you got something, that if you're looking to be one of the greats in whatever it is that you're doing, the greatest podcaster, the greatest shoe salesman, whatever it is, it's tapping into that depth. That is where it's going to make it.
Yeah, I think you just have to flip it, right? Because you said like, hey, I'm gonna go to the gym 2 hours every day because I want to get fit. Instead, you flip it around. It's like, I want to get fit, so I'm gonna go to the gym for 2 hours. So it's like easier to understand.
Or I enjoy because I cut you off just because that's what we do here. I can hit the mute button. Even we don't really have a mute button. A couple things come to mind. The notion of I go to the gym to become fit, or I'm going to have this diet versus having a lifestyle change. Mm-hmm. The question that I have is, what do you do so if I'm going to diet so I lose 100 pounds, right? Okay. As maybe somebody would do, I'm going to the gym to be fit. Well, what are you going to do when you become fit? Do you just stop? Because then you just get back in the cycle. You just start diet eating again. And the other point, another saying that somebody told me when I first started working back when people were in 8th grade, as Kris has stated, I was very fortunate to work with some. I started off doing consulting when I got out of the Army, and I worked with some great consultants and sort of mentor type people. One of them told me, just do what you do, or do what you enjoy, do it well, the money will follow, right? And it goes along, and that's what the first thing that came to mind, what you were talking about, is I enjoy going to the gym. I have that inside me, right? I'm just being myself, doing my thing. Mm-hmm. I enjoy it. It comes through. I'll do it well. It doesn't become work. Therefore, it becomes sustainable. Am I off base? You're a psychologist.
No, I think that's perfect.
No, you're not off base. It's exactly why a lot of the great, successful people who claim to be, fitness coaches or diet coaches, they actually start within.
Hear that, Kris? I'm going to be great and successful.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tell yourself that every day.
And bringing it back to branding is, if you get all of it right, you get your branding solidified, you market, everything's coming and everything is good, and you did it just to sell a thing, how long is selling the thing going to be fulfilling? But if instead you know that through the thing you tap into people, and through the people you evoke change, or you support a cause, or you know you help the world see things more beautifully, whatever that thing is, that deeper thing, that is what stands the test of time. That's why they say, you know, money can't bring happiness, because you can keep making the money, you can make the sales, your podcast can get all the views, but if the depth isn't there, you're going to keep lacking and keep looking for that fill. Yeah, gosh, we went deep here.
No, this is
Yeah.
good. I could sit here
That's
and talk
good.
to you all day. We are at,
Our timer. It's
our
probably
timer's
good. I
at
need to be on a
32
timer.
minutes, roughly 33 minutes. But who's counting? No, but I do appreciate this, and I could see the exercise somebody would have to go through. And the presentation's amazing. Like, and that's one of the things the first time I spoke with you that I was impressed with is I use the word actually. Everybody loves how I say that too. Visualize it. Like I can visual, which to me is like it's important. It's the message is visual in my head. I'm thinking of websites. I'm thinking of social media. Thinking how we need to probably get a new producer. We can talk to see who you're doing to produce yours, and maybe we can, have a jazz themed podcast. Right? You can, have many different types of guests on your on your podcast. Kris, edit that out. I don't make mistakes.
That's staying, man. It's live.
If my blanket has to stay the whole time, we're keeping that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just so excited that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that this hit, and there's some good stuff. I hope that there's some deep stuff that leaves you a little like, gosh, man, that's a lot. But I also hope the exercise of just really looking, like, we all are attached to these things, right? And so to make it, to deepen the reason why that exercise is valuable to you, let me just give you one little stat. Back when I was in 8th grade, the stat was it takes 5 to 7 impressions.
I was getting my AARP notices then.
It takes 5 to 7 impressions to convert a lead to a sale. Okay, that was the old stat. Now they're saying it takes more like 22 to 25 impressions to convert a lead to a sale. Pros and cons with that. Pro, we all have these, and we're connected to these, and we are served imagery and branding and messaging all the time, right? Constantly served that. So to get to those 22 to 25 impressions is a lot easier because we have more accessibility to our audience. But what happens is if you don't have that consistency that I talked about, right? All of those places, if it's not consistent, now we're muddying the water on those impressions. If I show up at your website and it feels completely different, if I go to your social and I just don't know if I'm at the right place, all of those things take away from each impression it's taking to get someone to get more into your world. And we want to get there quicker, faster, and that cohesion will help you.
That is amazing. In that, Kris, you have to rewind and replay. Because that is an
We'll put a
important message.
pop-up with the quote
and that's what I
message.
say. It's like in this world, you talk about the impressions. Mm-hmm. I see something, the first thing I do is I'll do a search. Or it's like we talk about like a plumber. If I see a plumber all over, right, consistency, I see him driving down the street. I may not need a plumber today. He'll talk to me, but I'll have the impression. So I need a plumber. I will call them. And to your note of this being a difficult exercise, I think it may or should not be as difficult as it sounds, because if you're true to yourself and it is what you are, you should be able to just put it out there. I think you can talk about who you may want to be, but you can get there. But if you're going to start your branding and your strategy, you want to identify who you are and put that down, because even if you want to get somewhere, you won't know what to change, right? Or what to focus on to help you get there. See, now I've become
I love that, because so when I shared my core values earlier, I just got to tell you, when peace became one of our core values, when this was solidified into my world, the first moment that peace came up, I literally, and I still to this day, got emotional. And that's not because I'm such a peaceful person. It's because it's so something that I need to balance these high energy, atypical, A-type keywords: enthusiasm, positive, intentional. These are very high energy
Love
on
it.
words. And peace, for me, when it got brought into my sphere and it was on the board, I was like, I felt peace. I felt relaxed. I felt heard and seen. And I felt like, to your point, Brad, I need this. And if I'm going to choose to look through the lens of my core values and everything I do, I'm going to put peace on there so that I can honor for myself and for my team and for my clients that this balance is important. So you're 100% right. It's not about, you know, it is about being who you are, but it's also about recognizing what you need and bringing that into your world.
Love it.
I'm speechless.
Love it.
I'm speechless. That was
Mic
amazing.
drop.
Mic
Yeah,
drop.
I have nothing to say to that. I really don't. That was.
Well, you brought it up. It was your words, so I just took
No,
them out,
it's-
regurgitated them, baby birded them.
And we're leaving it on that note. So now everybody will hear you say them, and they will be yours.
Okay.
But if the producer could just do like a recap and replay at the end, then have me transition out with a fade. He made me put my headphones on.
What's wrong with that?
Well, the other day I used the wireless headphones.
Oh,
See, so I'm going to ask your opinion from a marketing and branding point of view. Okay, I'll have to pause for a moment and switch the headphones, but because I won't be able to hear you. So these are my headphones. So I started the podcast the other day because I have wireless headphones. So hold on, I have to figure out how to open the case. The eyes can't see.
tactile. It's like they've got that little thing in there so you know how to open them.
Okay. You can't talk yet because I can't hear you. Well, if I was listening to the podcast, I could hear you, but live I can't. I have to figure out how to change. Oops, I just muted myself.
No, he muted
Okay,
himself.
muted myself.
I love
There
it.
you go.
Kris has got to keep them in check.
Okay, here we go. So now, if I were a marketing, if I was looking for my it in a hypothetical podcast that now does video and audio, soon to be live, that I'll say. I always yell at Kris for saying, you don't talk about things we're going to be doing because these are timeless. People can hear them and they can hear them out of order. But I will. That's the one he'll give me. I'll say we're going to be doing because we were supposed to do it today. Which should I use? Should I use the wireless or the wired? What makes me have the role of a jazz podcaster?
I want you to do what people can expect to see you do regularly. Okay? If what people can expect is
Put
that
the
you're gonna
headphones
show
back
up
on.
in headphones, then I think you should show up in headphones, right? If you go back and forth, then that's fine. Go back and forth. But if people can expect to see me as a curly haired girl, whether it's up, down, half up, whatever, they're expecting that. If all of a sudden I showed up and I had my hair straightened, it's just a little jarring, and
That'd be weird.
It'd be weird. Yeah, Kris can contest for sure. It would be weird, and it's not expected. And when we're trying to, once again, build up to those impressions, and we're trying to leave a memory and trying to, oh, I want a good podcast. Who do I want? We want so much cohesion that it's really easy for your show to come back to mind, for that plumbing company to come back to mind. The inconsistencies are actually working against us. And so
Understood. See,
That's-
so Kris,
that's
the
how I would
logo
show
needs
up.
to have headphones on it. See, we have to do some redesigning after this session because
because you prefer headphones?
I prefer headphones because since we started videos, a lot of thumbnails will all have our headphones on, or at least Brad and myself.
Right. Yeah,
Gotta
and
play
I
the
do-
part.
I do think that it is a visual element that tells somebody that this is a podcast, right? And we're doing enough. There's enough crossing in the podcast world, and there's also enough TVs coming on, streaming TV shows. No longer just have to be on the cable networks. There's so many, the Hulus, all these little networks are popping up.
and we'll be doing live. I'm telling you. But the one thing you mentioned is the streaming networks and the shows. See, this is where I was going. You talk about the presentation. So prior to COVID, when the world, I don't even know what happened to the world. I think a lot of people don't. A lot of things weren't in person. I don't know if you know that. like there was a lot of this thing called
I was there
like
for it.
social distancing where people wanted to stay away. So a lot of the radio hosts, or not, excuse me, radio hosts, television hosts, instead of having people in studio or they having them go to those little annex offices that they have, you know, where you can do interviews like in New York with somebody in California, they go to another office. So you're doing an interview because they have the audio set up and the internet and everything connected. People went to home offices. So you're used to hearing everybody echoing. You can see the headphones. You can hear dogs barking, glitching of the audio. Here we are years later, and that wasn't a dig for your dog barking, by the way.
Thanks.
Because we're not editing it out. If we have to keep
She's
my
actually
mistakes,
my chief marketing officer. She was just doing her job.
okay, so
Yep,
just letting
there
us
you
know
go.
she was there and you're on. But did you notice that today, now that everything is considered back to normal or in person, or almost 100%, if it's not 100%, it's 99.9%. A lot of these television shows that do interviews, they still have people in those environments. So it's like we've become accustomed to the quality not being so great for the interviews. And I'm assuming there's a time savings, there's convenience.
I was
that you
going to
can
say convenience for sure.
It's very convenient because if you have somebody you want to speak with, they no longer have to travel somewhere or have somebody come to them to get them to presentation quality. I'll say it. And you don't have the cost of having these small like whatever they used to call those satellite offices where they'd have people go. I forget what they call them. There is a term for it. Kris GPT. Could you look it up? Thanks. But
Sorry, every time he's just like, Kris, do it.
no, well, the Kris GPT is a joke.
I assume both are jokes.
Yes, I mean we spoke about it, I think, at a previous podcast. But for you and anybody who has not heard it yet, Kris, you know, his thing is he comes up and, you know, I've been speaking with him for quite a while, and then at one point, you know, ChatGPT came out last November. I jumped on it, started working with it. Yes, Kris, I'll say that. So then this guy who used to give me like one-word answers started like coming back to me with like, well, back in 1947, at the advent of this earth, the building was made with mason, and then the mason would use the wood from the lumber yard, and the trees were maple, but they couldn't use maple. And then like, so now everything he comes is like, I call him Kris GPT because everything he does, he looks up and he just pastes it back to me.
That's awesome.
So now he's Kris GPT, and he's also now into, you know, doing Kris GPT images. You know, he's trying to do like AI generated
Just
images.
automating some of those things makes it easy.
So I call him Kris GPT, but it's a lot of fun. And like I always tell him, it's a tool that you use. Like people say people use this type of stuff, but if it's something that give you inspiration, you know, to give you an idea or to give you a thought or a foundation, as you had mentioned. And I just bumped into my microphone. See, we're keeping all these errors on there, Kris. We might not have to do any edits on this one, besides when I'm drinking.
We do it live. We're
We're going to
practicing
call
it.
this the most authentic episode, and Kris GPT doesn't have to do a single edit other than the sax.
Yep. I'll just add the saxophone.
All right, Steph, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. As always, it was a pleasure.
Likewise.
It was definitely inspirational,
Oh, good.
and I got a lot out of it. There was a lot of vigor. See, yes, you are a lot, but in a positive way. The conversation is engaging. I appreciate it, and thank you for going over on the time. I appreciate it, and we have to see. Hopefully, we can do. We can exercise some of the things that we spoke about. But if you would, how can somebody get in touch with you to talk with you more about building up their foundation for their branding strategy, identifying the it, and going on their journey to become at the end where people shoot for marketing, but to also have like a good branding strategy and marketing strategy?
Yes. So if you want to get Viim, you can go to getvim.com. So Viim is spelled with 2 I's. Remember, that's Visual Intentional Integrated Marketing.com. I'm also a human. Fun. I'm Steph Hilfer. And so I show up on LinkedIn as a human. I am on Facebook and Instagram as a human. And that's fun. So if you want more of that, you can go there. Also, on my website, you can get a hold of me an email and phone, and we can just chat. I love I'm very open to just starting off with just a conversation and then deciding from there what you need.
No, that's great. Thank you. We will post the links with the show notes to get in touch with you. And you also have a great podcast that I suggest others listen to as well. There's more than one podcast in this world, and I'm a firm believer. You'll never be the only one to do something. So I believe in promoting everybody because somebody said it best. Rising tides raise all ships. Yeah. So your podcast, we'll put a link to that in there as well.
Thank you.
And again, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.
Yes.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care. Perfect.
How was that?
That's good.
You sure?
Yep, I'll stop.